What's going on, guys? Philip, a Trade Genius. Hope you guys had a great weekend. In this video, I wanted to talk about the Mt. Gox Bitcoin. There's a deadline coming up of October 15th, 2020, and I've gotten more than one question about it. And, the concern is, will all 150,000 Bitcoin be released and end up dumping on the market and creating a bit of a crash, if you will? And we saw that back in 2018 in the bear market, where the attorney for the trust had gone ahead and released or had dumped Bitcoin onto the market in a not so savvy way and put a lot of negative price pressure on Bitcoin. So we're going to talk about that deadline in this video. All right, so let's dive into it.
Trade Genius.
So we're going to talk about that deadline in this video. Also, we're going to talk about the recent price action. I'm going to look at the Delta chart, and we'll also take a look at our current multi-time frame view as well. Guys, really quickly, we do have our monthly specials running, $3.99. If you guys get our special, I will throw in and just mention it when you get this, when you sign up, the Delta, which is going to show you, and we'll talk about that in this video, but it shows you kind of where the future speculating is going, which direction you basically want to be trading in that direction. And also we have our fulcrum indicator as well. And just for this special, just for today, I will throw that in on the #1 bundles as well. So, all right, let's dive into this Mt. Gox. So there's a deadline, which a lot of people were interpreting as by October 15th, they had to release the Bitcoin. However, this is actually basically a deadline for what to do about the plan, and they've been moving this deadline out. Highly unlikely that anything happens on the 15th, which is at the end of the week. Again, this is also pertains to, this is per Cointelegraph, pertains to submitting the rehabilitation plan, not refunding the BTC. So the deadline is for the trustee to put forward a plan not to refund investors. Okay, so it's probably going to be a few more months at least before we see any traction on that. And obviously, we're going to keep tabs on that. But like I said, the trustee has delayed this process several times in the past, and so that's not anything to be worried about come October 15th. Okay, so that, don't worry about that for now, but we'll keep tabs on that. Now, what is interesting here is noticing what price is doing. Now, as we talked about in the last video, it looks like more up. The S&P 500, I mean, obviously, being so close to all-time highs, we're looking to ring the bell there at the highs probably before the election, and maybe even higher. So I think that's ultimately the larger play at hand, and that's going to bring Bitcoin up. That's bullish for Bitcoin. If we look at the overlay of the S&P 500 with Bitcoin, as we showed in the last video, nothing really changed there. Market's up, Bitcoin's up. So, but if we look at the Delta, now the way I look at this, the blue shading is bullish and the pink shading is bearish, and anything in between where we kind of flip-flop back and forth, that can be considered chop. And you're going to find areas where the futures kind of have their own support and resistance on the Delta, and so we also mark that off as well. Now, when we get up into these upper levels of the Delta on the futures versus the spot price, you'll notice that once we start venturing north of 300, that's when we start looking for possible local highs, and it doesn't usually hold above the 300 level on the Deltas. In fact, you can draw some resistance here on this at this level here, call it 350 or so, but you can, when we get to that level, you're definitely going to be overbought as far as how the futures usually price in the price of Bitcoin. Okay, so that's one area I'm looking at for this move. Now, we talked about this move going up and testing previous levels. One area obviously on the radar here is going to be this spot up here. In reality, I think we're probably going to see something like 12,000 come up, get tested, pull back, and then the other spot would be up here as well, that 12,416 or 12,400, call it. But I think this area, we could see a little spike past it, but most likely they're going to try and bring price back under that 12,000 mark. You had a decent amount of resistance previous to that. You did poke above it quickly and then come back down. So normally you're going to get some sort of reaction when you have a previous history, as we saw here with price unable to get higher. So normally that just doesn't get run over. Okay. All right, and then with the multi-time frame, looking at the fulcrum indicator, obviously weekly is up, and along with the daily and the 4-hour. Weekly is flipping back to green. And so what I do is I wait for the weekly to confirm. And if it does confirm, then we're going to look for buying dips off of that, because it's safe to buy dips on those flips, especially when you're overall in an uptrend. And even if it doesn't, like say it flips to green here, right? Now you're coming from a sell fulcrum. Okay, so if it flips to green, it's got to actually start stepping back up on the weekly. If it just holds the fulcrum line, that doesn't mean that the trend has changed actually. So, but when you're coming up into a situation where you are green, coming up from a green fulcrum move back to the reddish bear fulcrum and then back to green, those are the ones that you want to really look for as far as buying continuation. And even in any situation, whenever you are flipping from the fulcrum, you can look for a pullback to the fulcrum. So this week isn't over, obviously, but if this low holds down here at 11,200 or so, that becomes our new fulcrum. And any dips back to that would be a buy. Okay, so that's how we look at that on the weekly. So I wouldn't be necessarily chasing anything here unless you're stepping down to like the smaller time frames, and then we can use some of our tools to do that on the small time frame. I think altcoins are going to continue to ride down as they seasonally do into November, December. And then I think there's going to be a decent rotation after the elections and things like that. And then we have a very bullish 2021 for most of the crypto space. So right now, if you're long with Bitcoin, nothing to do as far as where we are in the cycle. This is par for the course. We're actually lagging. As you remember from our last video, we're lagging in the cycle. We should be a few $1,000s higher in reality, but we're not. So that's okay. The COVID recession probably had a major part to do with the lag on that. Otherwise, I think, as you can see, all the fundamentals are very bullish, and this is just going to be one of those situations where we just grind higher, ultimately making, on the weekly chart, you'll just see higher lows and higher highs start to be made. So that's where we are at right now. Again, Mt. Gox, not a huge deal. I wouldn't worry about that. We'll keep tabs on that. But that deadline coming up is not for any release of coins from that. That's just simply a deadline to either extend the deadline or submit a plan to the legal system for how that's going to be handled. All right, guys, that's it for this video. Appreciate you guys watching. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. And if you're interested in what we got, head over to tradegenius.co. Check it out. Thanks, guys. I'll see you on the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.
Trade Genius.